All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Keptn community meeting. Again, this week it's focused on taking a look at the issues that have been implemented the last 2 weeks. And as I can see, the list is quite long, meaning that quite a lot of things have been touched and implemented, so that I don't want to waste time here at the beginning, and want to directly hand over to Moritz, who is the first one in the list, and will show us what he did in regard to upgrading the MongoDB and the maintenance work that he was working on. Moritz, are you okay?
Yes,
Taking over?
thanks, Jonas. So I'm gonna share here as well. Yeah, so in the last sprint, I mostly actually worked on the upgrade of MongoDB, which was kind of a custom Helm chart implementation before. And basically what I did is I switched that custom implementation out for the Bitnami MongoDB Helm chart. And that got rid of lots and lots of custom code, as you can see here. So it's like 90 new lines and almost 2K removed lines. This basically took most of my sprint, since I had lots of hiccups with Keptn upgrades and data migration and things like that. Yeah, but in the end, I managed to get it running. The only thing that is still missing is the introduction of documentation for that. I'm gonna do that next sprint probably. Yeah. So basically, this includes, for one, the removal of our custom MongoDB Helm chart, and it actually also upgrades MongoDB from our 3.6 to 4.4, which should also be helpful.
One thing to mention maybe here is that it contains a breaking change because we need to manually migrate the data.
Yes, exactly. So there's no nice way to auto-migrate data between databases, but the migration should be as simple as following the Keptn backup and restore guidelines that we already have in our documentation. Yeah.
Can you give us details here? So if you do a Helm upgrade, what happens then? Will the old MongoDB be replaced?
Yes. So the old MongoDB will be shut down, and the new one is gonna come up. It's gonna have a new volume. That's why you need to back up your data first and then restore it, which means in the end that it's a Mongo database dump and then an import.
Okay.
For now, basically the testing guidelines are already the backup and restore guidelines. I will basically update those in the documentation later on. But if you want to have a look already, those are the migration guidelines basically in the how to test section here. Any other questions?
It's not merged yet.
No, it's not merged yet. It's
Okay.
not gonna come out with 0.10. Yeah, and the rest of the sprint basically for me was maintenance work. One of the highlights is that we switched in the bridge from NPM to Yarn, which gives us lots of benefits in terms of speed, packaging. The pipeline gets a little more stable, I would say. Yeah. Then other things, I bumped Nginx, or API Gateway Nginx, from 1.19 to 1.21.3. This shouldn't have any impact, any breaking changes. Everything should be fine with that. If anything comes up, as always, reach out in the Keptn Slack or directly on GitHub. And last but not least, GKE stopped support for Kubernetes 1.18. That's why we bumped our testing versions, and we are now testing against GKE clusters on 1.19 to 1.21. Yeah, and that's pretty much my whole sprint. Any questions?
Another question, but a remark to the last issue, because can we also mention this on our documentation, because there we have a section of where we show the metrics of which Keptn version is tested with which GKE cluster, for example. And here we also then have to reflect that we we bumped the version.
Yes, so I'll create a small follow-up ticket for the documentation.
Thanks.
Cool, that's it from me then. And I'm handing over to Bernd.
Which is not here, but I will take over it. So Bernd mostly work on bug fixing. The first one is for the configuration service, where the wrong commit message was used when we are using folders, and the commit message was containing the URL escape of slashes. Now it's fixed. Then also still for the configuration service, that when the credentials are used in a wrong manner, then we were returning the wrong status code. Then some endpoints were missing in the configuration service, which are now implemented to retrieve correctly the files. And finally, work on a next issue where the distributor had some problem of synchronization between different coroutines, and we nailed down to this out of memory problem and provide a fix for it. And still for the distributor, he adapted in order to provide also the events of to the component that receive an event, also the information why this event was sent to this component. This way, the component can take more smart decision on how to apply a specific reaction to a specific event. And the last thing we work on is to move our integration test from bash scripts to Go. So it's easier to debug them, it's easier to reproduce the errors, and the PR is not yet finished, it's just on a draft mode, but it will be done for tomorrow, basically. And are there any questions? If not, then I will hand it over to Florian.
All right, thank you. All right, ready. Let me just find the correct window to share. No, where is it? Here it is. And that's the wrong one. Just a second. Okay. And also that one. All right, sorry for the delay. But now let's get started. In this sprint, I worked on 2 features and 1 bug fix. So let's go through the features first. So those are both about the webhook service. So the first one was to make use of the subscription information. So as Giovanni mentioned, Bernd did a pull request where he passed the information about the subscription ID. Do you still see my screen?
No, it's frozen, I think.
Okay, apparently something went wrong here. Sorry about that. All right, but now you should see it again. Just make it a little bit bigger. All right, so basically this one was about actually making use of the information that comes from the distributor about the subscription ID. And the reason why we did that is, so let's have a look at this screenshot. This should illustrate it quite well. So Johannes stumbled upon this scenario where the webhook service was subscribed to the evaluation.finished event 2 times actually. So 1 time specifically for the cards microservice in the dev stage, and then another subscription was created for all other services, or for all services within the dev stage. And in that case, you might want to execute different webhooks depending on if specifically for the cards microservice you have received an evaluation.finished event, or if you have received evaluation.finished event for all other services. And previously the webhook service didn't actually know which subscription the incoming evaluation.finished event was belonging to. So in that case, it was executing the same webhook 2 times, because it received the event 2 times, but it didn't have this information. And actually the desired outcome would have been that for the first time, it executes the webhook for the cards microservice, and then additionally the generic stage event webhook. And with using this subscription ID that we have now added, so basically the way this works is in the webhook configuration, you will need to set the subscription ID that should match to the webhook to be triggered. So this is done automatically when the webhook is configured via the bridge. And this way the webhook service can execute the correct webhook. Any questions about that? All right, if not, let's continue. So the next one is also about the webhook service. So here we identified the need that users might want to disable the automatic response with a finished event that's generated with a webhook service. So for example, or up until now, the default behavior was that the webhook service, once a webhook was triggered, it sent out the start event or started event, executed the request or the requests, depending how many you have configured, and aggregated the responses, and then finally responded to with a finished event containing the data of those responses or of those requests back to Keptn. But however, if you would like to execute or trigger an external web service that in turn sends a finished event on its own, you might want to set the send finished property to false. So that means that the webhook service will, in that case, only send a started event for each of the requests that are to be executed. But then the finished event should be sent by the external web service. The only case where the finished event is still sent by the webhook service is in error cases. So in general, if for example, if the curl request couldn't be executed, could be because the host wasn't reachable, or if any unallowed characters were included in the curl command, or if, for example, environment variable was referenced in the curl call that couldn't be resolved. So in those cases, the webhook service will still respond with a finished event, so that the sequence can be concluded properly. Any questions about that? All right, if not, let's have a look.
I do have a question for the last thing. Did you document this behavior somewhere in the README of the webhook?
I did in the README of the webhook file, so I created a pull request for that today.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, and then one final bug issue that I was working on. So recently, during our tests, we had this scenario where we had an SLO file that looked like this. So we had a list of objectives. The first one was valid, and then there was a null entry. And in that case, the Lighthouse service was crashing because of a nil pointer exception, and that was fixed with that use case, with that pull request. So nothing too spectacular here. So As you can see, previously it was iterating over the objectives and made sure that the default weight was set for each of those. And actually this field was not a simple array of objectives, but an array of pointers to objectives. And in that case, we just check whether it is not nil and then do the operation on that. If not, we will continue with the loop, and this way those exceptions are avoided. And luckily, the unit tests were already in place here, so just had to be extended a little bit by adding one of those bad null entries. All right, any questions? If not, let me hand over.
One question. Yeah. So with this, we now actually allow to write nil or null values into the SLO YAML. So
we don't explicitly allow it. It was actually possible before, and but we up until now never actually had this case. So this was discovered accidentally, and since we discovered that, we now took this additional safety measure.
But do we want to have null values in SLO YAMLs, or should this be an invalid SLO YAML at all?
Yeah, probably doesn't really make any sense to have.
To me, sounds like a warning.
The problem is that we don't have a specific API for creating SLOs, so we only have the generic resource endpoint on the configuration service. Actually, I have created a GitHub discussion that kind of addresses this problem, where I basically propose to have a specific API for each kind of Keptn native resource, like SLOs or.
But here, and the problem is, which I see is SLO objective. This struct is defined as a pointer, and therefore the YAML unmarshalling, or yeah, the YAML unmarshalling does not fail if there is a null inside. So I see the root cause not that this is not handled via dedicated API. I see the root cause actually that this is a pointer.
Yeah, this we will need to change. We can change, of course, as well.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further questions, I will hand over to Klaus.
Okay, thanks. Let me share the screen. Okay. Yeah. So to begin with the features, the first thing is the webhook configuration. Before, it was not possible to have several webhooks that are subscribed to the same subscription and had the same filter for project, stage, and service. Before that, we just.
Klaus, can you zoom in a little bit? It's
sure.
Quite difficult to read.
Okay.
Better. Yeah. Thanks.
Before that, it was not possible to have multiple because there was no redaction if it is the same webhook or not, by the same subscription. Now we introduced a new field in the webhook.yaml file, the subscription ID, and now we can explicitly differentiate between these two subscriptions. This is then shown here. We have the subscription ID for both webhooks, and now we can exactly differentiate because of the ID and not of the event type. And yeah, that's basically it for the first feature. Next thing is the tooltips. Okay. The heat map now has some tooltips for if you hover over it. Now there is a tooltip that shows the value, the total warning SLI that resulted in warning, the total result that resulted in failed, and also the threshold for the score. The overlay depends on where you hover it. So if you hover over the score, it shows an overview of all. And for SLI, you see the exactly values, what happened, what failed, and what was the threshold of it. Any questions to that?
Not a question, but can you move up a little bit to the score column row?
Oh yeah.
I mean the third category is missing, the total past SLIs.
Okay, yeah, maybe I should add this.
Please, because it is also very an important information how many SLIs have actually passed, how many ended up in a warning, and how many in a failed. Because we have Keptn users that have 20 or 50 SLIs in this set, and then this heat map, which is really cool, gives you an overview of how these three categories are distributed.
Also, short question: what is the metric of pass and warning? Is it % or?
It's just the value of the
It's the
score.
count.
So from
the count. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, since we have the scale from 0 to 100, you can also think of percentage, but yeah, it's the count or the
I could,
threshold.
yeah, it's okay. I couldn't connect the two of them, so I wondered if there's a metric missing somehow, but then it's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, then let's continue. The next thing is we migrated from TSLint to ESLint because TSLint is now deprecated, and then we also switched to ESLint and also activated some checks in the pipeline for it. And ESLint runs also with Prettier included, and yeah, also with a command in the package.json to execute a fixed state. And yeah, that's probably it for TSLint, ESLint. Next to it, the bugs. Let's go to the first one. Yes, was this one. The environment screen did not show the real state or real running sequences of a stage service. This was because it just took the latest updated, the latest updated sequence to finished or started, but not if it was in between them, if it was waiting in staging, for example. And now it is updated correctly that it shows if the sequence that was waiting is running again, then it also shows it in the environment screen that this one is actually running. The next bug was the subscription page was stuck while loading. This was related to that there was a shipyard file with some stages defined, and that did not have any sequences defined. So there was a null issue for that. And yeah, this is also fixed by now. The next thing is the evaluation part in the service screen. This one was refreshed every time in background the data was updated. And now if there is a new evaluation, there shows up a refresh button, and only then, if you click the refresh button, the evaluation board updates and shows the latest evaluations. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, just a question to the last bug fix. this means when I now stay here as a user, then I don't jump to the top after a couple of seconds.
And also
Okay.
this one stays expanded if it is
awesome.
updated. Yeah.
Cool.
Then the latest thing was the SRI breakdown. This value here, the value compared value before, was just taken from the latest compared event. So this one, but it could happen that there are several compared events to that. And then this was the wrong value, because then the actual compared with value is the average of all compared evaluations and not the latest one. And yeah, this is fixed by now. Any questions?
Fixed from an UI point of view, but going forward, we want to get this information from the
Exactly.
API, from the event. Okay, because
because up to now we have to go through all previous evaluations and calculate it by in the front end, but this value should come from the backend in future. Yeah, that's basically it. Any further questions? If not, then I will hand over to Elisabeth.
Okay, thanks. I will share my screen. Okay. So the first issue I worked on was the add secrets to webhooks feature. So a user should be able to directly add via you cannot see it good via pop-up a secret directly to the URL, to a custom header or the custom payload. So, and then the secret should be parsed and added to the webhook YAML. So how this how it's look like here is, so I added an API secret here, and there you can already see I added for the URL. I already added some secret here. I can add it, for example, so there will be a pop-up, and you have like expandable list where you can select the secret and the secret key. So that's the secret name you gave in the secret screen. And I created the keys API token, API URL. So I take the API token and it will be directly pasted to the field here. I can also type here, put the cursor here, select another secret, it will be pasted then directly where the cursor was. And it's also working for the custom payload. So same here. So it will be always be added like .secret, secret name, .secret key. In order to, if we expand this a little bit to distinguish between, for example, variables and secrets. So this is the format we now use. So if you save this, I will just show what happens here. It's parsed into the webhook YAML file. So there will be then a part which is called and from. There you can see that's not the same name, because we have to parse it into a different format in order to be compliant with the YAML file. So it will be parsed to secret underline secret name and secret key without any dashes, points, etc. Because we must use only underlines for the reference name, and then there's the secret reference with the name of the secret and also the key again. And in the webhook, for example, in the webhook request, you can see that's it used like that. So we in the webhook YAML file, it has to be used like .env to reference the and from part of the webhook YAML file, and then the reference name. So it maps to this one. Yeah, that's it basically. Questions?
Elizabeth, can you jump back to the first screen that they showed us? This was the secret screen.
Yep.
When you create a new one.
Yeah, you have to select the Keptn webhook service. On my cluster, it's now not, I think there's something missing for the scope. So I disabled the scope check, but it should then only get the secrets here from the scope of webhook secrets.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I will go to the next issue. So the next,
I'm just curious, why did you disable this scope?
I think I haven't installed something. I think the newest version of Secret Service is missing on my cluster, and then the saving and the retrieving isn't working properly. So for testing purposes, but it's only on my local installation. So okay. Then the next one was just a minor bug with styling. So somewhere in between the stylings for the create project screen, which was suddenly full-sized, was lost, and also the styling that the delete project panel is not overlaid was also lost somewhere. I don't know. So now it looks proper again. So if I add something here, it's also moved up a bit so that it can still be clicked. So that was that. And an issue was that popped up yesterday was that the integration tests, in the integration tests, the UI tests were failing. I first thought this was just an issue with, so it was an issue with mocks that were missing. But I also moved them now out of the integration tests and moved them to the CI pipeline for the bridge, because it makes sense to execute them on the pipeline, because it's not an integration test. It's just an UI test. So I added the UI test step here. It already runs, as you can see here in the CI. There is the UI test bridge. So this is the one from the PR. And then it runs through. So I also fixed some tests and removed flakiness from it. So hopefully it's now stable. So if you see anything that's not working with the UI tests, please just go ahead and tell me. So then we will work to improve them further. Okay, thank you. That's all from my side. Next one is Soraya. Ermin. Ermin is next. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to present also featuring Keptn's bridge. It's about showing the payload of the last event for subscription configuration. And yeah, the idea here is that when you create a filter for your subscription configuration, you can see an example payload. And in future, for example, you can also add variables from this payload to your webhook configuration. So this will help to see an example and identify the variables that are available. Of course, I will do a short demo of that. So when you go to your subscription, for example, you're creating a new subscription, then as soon as you select the task, for example, deployment, then the show example payload button is enabled. And in this case, because I have just the deployment task selected, it will load the deployment triggered event. So the latest deployment triggered event in my environment and show me that payload. Of course, I can, for example, also create a filter just for deployment finished on a specific stage, for example, on staging. And it will show me then, of course, the deployment finished even from stage staging here. And if, for example, you select a task that has not been executed on your environment yet or is not available on that specific stage, then let me just find one that was not executed yet. I think a rollback was not executed. Then, of course, it will show an error message. No, cannot find one. I think it was evaluation finished on stage production. Then it will show that, yeah, there were not, it could not find any issue. So it's delete probably. No, I have all events executed. Action. No, I have all executed, so it seems like I cannot find an example. But if there is, for example, no action finished event, then no, it seems
One
like it
sec.
always
So
loads the delivery finished in my case here.
Yeah.
Seems like there is actually something broken on my local machine currently, but it should show. Maybe not. Okay, there is something because yeah, I think I have the wrong API connected now because of course I had also to change the bridge server part. That's why it's always returning this deployment finished event. Yeah, that's the issue and that I have now here. Yeah, in the case that, for example, a get action event was never triggered on your environment, it would show the an error message or a warning actually that there is no event available to be displayed. Yeah. Are there any questions?
I mean, are you also filtering on projects? Meaning?
Yes, the project filter is always by default there. So it will always filter just events from this currently selected project.
Mm-hmm.
And it will also consider stage and service filters. So if you have stage and service filters here, also if you have multiple stage filters, it will take just the first stage and load events just from that stage. So it should show loading get action triggered event from stage dev for service cards in this case. But I have the wrong backend here running at the moment. The API was not consuming this type filter. That's why it's always showing an event here or a wrong event at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just to be sure that we don't leak information from one project to the other one.
Yeah, it's
that the project filter is always on.
Adding the project filter automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's all from my side. So
just one additional question. You have the pull requests open in regard to remove the loading bar, which shows up every time. Can we also get that one merged into
we will
master?
Merge it. It's removing this loading bar here on top. The thing that I have to make sure now is that in all pages that we have on in our bridge, the same loading indicator is displayed. As you can see here, we have two different loading indicators. So here on the left side, you saw this circle, and here it is differently. So I will just align those and make sure that we use the same indicator everywhere. And then we will, also merge that one. That's actually still in progress.
Then we get rid of the bar.
We will get rid of the bar because yeah, it's it does not add any yeah, information to the user what is loading actually. Yeah. Yeah, that's all from my side. So I'm handing over to Sarai.
Is that my turn? I don't have permission to share my screen, so if someone could just go with the pull request. Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Suraj, now you should have the permissions. Okay. Now,
Yeah, good now. Let me share my screen. Okay. I hope my screen is visible.
Can it be that it's rather windy on your end? Can it be that it's rather windy on your end?
So sorry, what was that? A lot of what?
Your microphone is making a lot of background noise, making a lot of noise.
Sorry about that. I think that's a dog in the background. Saturday, I don't really have a quiet place in my home.
Okay, no worries.
So, yeah, so my name is Suraj. I recently started contributing to Keptn. This would be my second PR, so let me quickly go over the issue. Yeah, so basically the issue is if you do Keptn set config automatic version check to false, it still checks the version, and you see that it's complaining about the version, and the reason for that is we don't actually read in the automatic version check flag from Keptn config. We actually don't read in the config in the Keptn root command. So the PR fixes that. So yeah, here we have, it's a little long, so I won't explain it, but basically it reads in the Keptn config using the CLI manager, and just sees if automatic version check is enabled or not, and there are like a couple of tests and everything. And my second fix is a small fix where if the connection to NATS is lost for some reason, the logs do not show the error message. So, for example, it just says unable to subscribe to topics, and these are the topics, but it does not really print the error message. We don't really know, or we don't really have a way to reproduce the issue, but at least just print the error message. So it's just basically there's a %v and prints the error message. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and Jürgen suggested adding myself as a member, so I also have a PR for that. I think I am in need of one more vote, and I got a vote from Jürgen. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I think that wasn't the issue. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I'm waiting for one more vote, and that's all from my end. Thank you.
right. Suraj, thanks for sharing with us the pull requests you worked on. Question to the team: can someone please review them?
Yeah, we'll make sure to have a look at them tomorrow.
And we'll take care of the request for membership. Yeah, the last pull request you mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Let's just take a look into the chat window. No questions in there.
So actually, I was just discussing with Moritz, and I think we had a good idea to use our Keptn for the pull request reviews, because then we could really see whether the state on master really is working end to end. And what do you think about this idea? So it would show us Keptn works, so we can use Keptn to deliver Keptn. Everyone has the same setup, and we know then this master version which we presented in the review works.
You mean running the master build of Keptn in Keptn, or every PR in Keptn? That was not clear to me.
So everything which is merged to master.
Okay, so only the latest version of master every time it's built and run and tested over Keptn. Okay.
But technically this also makes sense, because we can only close the issue and present it if it's merged. So I mean, the pressure is a little bit higher to get the PR merged before the review. I understand this, but within that we have one environment where we can all see end-to-end delivery. And as far as I understood it, Moritz, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a prerequisite for this is that we need our integration tests to be green again.
Yes, so for now, basically the deployment to Keptn of the master state happens after the integration tests run through. And then basically Keptn is deployed on our meta Keptn instance.
Okay.
The thing is that that whole process only runs nightly. So that would be probably too slow for us.
But before a preview, before a review, could we just trigger it during lunch? And then
we could just easily trigger a manual run and deploy it that way, and that's it.
Like currently for the word trigger CI label to trigger everything, we can have such a thing. Because I would say for small things, maybe it's not worth it, but for bigger PR or more substantial one that change the core part of Keptn, we might want that. Did I explain myself?
Yes, but that's, so you mean a different state than master? Because what Andreas meant is, at least that's what I understood, is that we have a current version of master deployed there.
Right.
After the PR is kept, okay, then yeah, makes sense to me.
I mean, at Dynatrace, this is the same. Yeah, I think it would be worth the effort to get this up again.
Yeah, maybe twice a day. Yes.
It gives us confidential. Okay, cool.
Okay, let's define a goal. Can we achieve this within the next 2 weeks, that the sprint review or the review of the issues are presented using the Keptn installation? Then I would write it down as an action item into the agenda, and then
let's aim for it. If we do not make it, we at least tried it, and there's then always a reason why we didn't manage it. So yeah, makes sense.
All right, then yeah, I will add it to the agenda. That this is one of our next goals we want to achieve. Cool, great. Thanks for presenting all of your implementation work. Really great what have been implemented and what now possible with all these features. Looking forward to use them and to test them out with the next Keptn release that is around the corner and will be released soonish. All right, with that said, and with no further questions, I think we close it for today. Thanks for joining in. Stay tuned and updated, especially for the next Keptn release, which is around the corner. Have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
See you.